everyone. How are y'all? Good. Okay. My name is Tolu Adesina, and I'm here with four special people from Rare. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to answer a couple questions, but I want to make this as interactive as possible. So please don't have me asking all the questions. So if you have questions, comments, anything, good, bad, or ugly, please, please, please ask. We're an open book, but we're going to start with just introductions, where everyone will go and talk about themselves and tell you a little bit about their background. So we'll start here.
Hi, so my name is Sarah Ryan. I'm a software engineer at Rare on the engine team. I grew up in London and studied programming at the University of Portsmouth. And what I do is, making sure the game runs at a good frame rate. You want your 30 FPS, your 60 FPS, and kind of managing like the performance of the game overall.
Hello, I'm Lorna Parry. I work in engine at Rare, same with Sarah, we work together. I went to Blackpool College, my local college, and I did that whilst I was full-time working, and studied software engineering and game development. And I work on performance and help maintain the engine that we make the game with.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm Ben Wilson. I'm one of the new interns at Rare, so I'm very new to the industry. I've only got like 3 months experience. I mainly focus on tools, so helping other developers automate their processes and hopefully make their lives easier.
Hi there. I'm Shadrach YY. I'm part of Rare's wonderful audio team. So what I get up to on a day-to-day basis is essentially creating a lot of Rare's sound effects and for their game Sea of Thieves and implementing that into the game. So for those who haven't heard of Sea of Thieves, imagine a pirate adventure game, and we essentially support the audio for that game. We help implement a lot of the audio from the ground up, and also for a good example, which Tolu gave me earlier, was because a lot of people don't really understand what game audio involves. So, like, imagine you were playing FIFA or something and the ball gets kicked, and then that's the sort of thing I would do. I would implement the sound from that side of things. I also handle a lot of the voiceover work, so I help record a lot of voice actors and implement that into the game. I'm originally from the northwest of England, so yeah, pick up the northwest.
Perfect, perfect. So we have four panelists today, but we also, like, when we think about the gaming industry as a whole, there's other skill sets. I've spoken to a lot of people in UX, UI, some people in marketing. If you have a passion for gaming, there's something that you can do within the gaming industry. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start by talking about some of the skill sets that you have and how you landed into the industry, because that's been a common question from people in the audience.
Yeah, so my journey into the industry was, like I said, I studied at university. I took a year out to do an internship with Rare, and then when completing that, they offered me a graduate position, and I've been there for about 2 years. In terms of skill sets for engineering, I mean, we use Unreal Engine to build our games. Another popular engine is Unity. So get those, like, they're free. There's some amazing tutorials for them to help you get started in them. And that's kind of, the main technology we use.
Perfect. We're going to go to Ben next, because I want to leave Lorna and Shad for last.
So I've been working in the tools, so sort of the skill set I mainly use is the problem solving. So as I'm very new, I don't have a vast knowledge of what all the tools are and how all they work. So the main thing is chasing down lines of code and seeing where it goes, reading through and understanding how this code is used and how the previous developers have used it in the past to get X function completed.
Beautiful, beautiful. And then I've also been asked a lot of questions about people who don't have gaming background or didn't come from a traditional university or things of that nature and how they get into the gaming industry. So I wanted to give this to Lorna and to Shad to talk about their career progression and how they got into the gaming industry without going the traditional majoring in game development or having an internship. So if you could start, Lorna, and talk a little bit about your career.
So I was always a big, massive gamer. Rare is one of my favorite studios of all time. My first Rare game I got when I was 5. That was a long time ago. But I had never done any programming before. I dropped out of college when I was 18 to become a professional wrestler. It wasn't the best idea I've ever had, but it got me to where I am now. And I just started doing any jobs, really. I worked in a receptionist in a casino for 9 years. I was a flight attendant. I worked at like county court, just doing jobs. And then at 25, I was like, I like games. Maybe I could program. And my local college had a course for software engineering and game development. So I went and did that whilst I was working full time. And then I saw that Rare did internships. And when I graduated, I applied for the internship and I got it. And now it's been 3.5 years. And I'm still here, and I'm very happy.
So I also have a very non-traditional entry into the gaming industry. So I initially actually started. I've always been an avid gamer, but it was never really an option for me. My parents were very serious people, and were like, "You must get a traditional job, Shadrach," you know. So I ended up sort of getting into audio from volunteering into local programs around where I grew up. So one of those was a community radio station. So I'd volunteer there every week. And then from then on, I realized that audio is kind of something that I enjoyed doing and applied for a music production course. And this led me to actually think about doing audio in filmmaking. And audio and filmmaking and games are very similar, but there's some slight different nuances. And essentially, I spotted Rare's internship program and decided to apply for that. And luckily, Rare is a very good place for learning things from the ground up because they foster learning and give you a lot of headroom to learn new things.
Perfect, perfect. Before we go into our next question, does anyone out in the audience have any questions for anyone on stage now that you've gotten to know them a little bit more? Just any questions for us in general about gaming, about Rare, or things of that nature? Don't be shy. We're good? No one. Not one person. Okay, someone does. You can meet me halfway if you want to. I'm just kidding. I'll come to you.
Testing. All right. So my question's quite general to the games industry. So I did my undergraduate in 3D animation and games, graduated in 2015. Didn't really want to go necessarily into the games industry because my perception was that I wouldn't be able to have kind of a large impact in society, which is something I fell in love with during my undergraduate. So in terms of games and its potential to make impact in society in lots of different areas, are there any roles or experiences or things around what you do or colleagues do that you might think contributes to society in some way to encourage a career within games development for people like me?
Andre? Good question. Who wants to take that?
Yeah, I'd say video games play a massive role in impact on society. Generally, entertainment is a great stress reliever in general, but I know that Rare has a lot of dedication and collaborates with a company called Special Effect, who help people with disabilities and have accessibility issues get into gaming. So you can get into that side of things and have a wider impact on games. Also, a lot of the software tools that you develop will potentially or in the future have a big impact on the wider world.
There was another aspect in terms of what I wanted to address was games don't always have to be sort of that entertainment value. There is sort of the education value of games. I could, for an example, like simulators, flight simulators. that could be training up a new pilot to do a new job. So there you're using the same tools that a game developer would use, but you're creating an experience to teach someone to help them in a career. And there's stuff like, say, cleaning up the ocean. Like, we can create things to spread the knowledge about these important issues, and it doesn't have to just be a game you play after work when you want to cool down.
Beautiful. Any more questions before we move on?
Hello? Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This is pretty cool. My question was about the gaming industry as a whole. So I've heard quite a few bad things about it, like how it has really toxic work cultures, how the pay isn't as good, like crunch time, people are doing crazy 80-hour weeks, stuff like that. Do you feel that's representative as a whole, or is Rare different in that regard?
I can take that. So yeah, we all see the stories, even us at Rare, we see them, and it makes us quite sad because Rare, and I think a lot of studios aren't like that, right? We care a lot about our people because ultimately you need to be happy and healthy and comfortable to be productive, to enjoy your work, to make a great game that lots of people are going to enjoy. Like, we very much encourage a culture of work your hours, go home, have a life, take your days off. It's fine. In our studio, we have people who are trained as mental health first aiders in case you're struggling with something. Like, there's people you can go to. Microsoft has wider support, like phone lines and stuff. We're very much a people-focused organization. And yeah, there are some places that it doesn't seem to be the case, but I think there's a lot of good places. So I wouldn't let it put you off getting into games in general.
I know for me, having worked a lot of customer service jobs, like those minimum wage jobs, there's a lot of drama in them. And then I came to Rare and I was like, where's the drama? Like, I was a bit shocked when I came here because it's so unbelievably different. And I think it also helps Microsoft core principles as well of like a growth mindset, and helping others gets you further in your career as well. It's completely different. Like, sometimes I'm still shocked that I work here. Just compared to what I used to do before. I wake up and I'm just like, can someone please start some drama with someone?
Yes, and I can definitely speak to that as well, as someone who's worked at other game studios. And coming here, especially transferring from the US, where we live in a culture that is driven by the clock, so people enjoy working 70-hour weeks. I love that Rare really puts people first, and that they're like, it's 4:45, it's time to wrap it up. We don't, I mean, of course, if you have to have a meeting after 5, that's great, but I know that we're in a culture of health is wealth, and your health, and that includes your physical and your mental and spiritual health, comes first before anything, and we will do whatever we have to do to keep that in play. Like, I've seen us, like, if we do work crunch times where we will get days off or half days or things of that nature that the studio just gives us to make sure that our psychological safety is never a threat. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question. But of course we do have crunch times, but we're aware of that. And as far as pay, we making some money, baby, so it is okay. You never gotta worry, okay?
Can I just add on top of that that it's something that's always been evolving as well. It's not like it's been the static thing that well-being got introduced and Rare or the game industry has got right straight away. It's a constant thing that we're learning how to do, and loads of game studios are communicating with each other on how to get that right.
Beautiful. Any other questions?
Thank you. I've got one pretty much for the whole panel. What's the best game that you feel you've worked on and had the biggest impact?
Well, Sea of Thieves is the only game I've shipped, so I've only got one answer, really.
Yeah, I'm in a similar situation of this after being my first opportunity to be in the game industry, that Sea of Thieves is the only title I've actively worked on.
I'm the same. I'm Sea of Thieves. We ship every month, so you could say I've shipped lots of things, you know. I was really happy with the Pirate's Life, though. It kind of felt to me like a Kingdom Hearts moment. I was like, oh, a Disney collab. I was really happy.
Yeah, I mean, not to surprise anyone, but it'd be Sea of Thieves for me as well, because that's the first game that I've shipped. But yeah, Pirate's Life was amazing. Kind of really weird to see, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean and the game I work on in the same space. But also, like when we first did like our first anniversary launch, we did a bunch of Tall Tales, these really story-driven adventures, and I was on the game team at the time and helped put that together, and it's very special to me. It holds a special place in my heart.
I'm just an HR, so don't really have much, but we have a new IP called Everwild. Quick plug, I think it's such a great game because it's different. Write it down, Everwild, if you've never heard of it. Please go look at the trailers. It's just a different type of game, and although it's not shipped yet, I think it's going to be something that's different to people that play games. Just go watch the trailer and then come talk to me at the booth when you're done because I want to hear what your thoughts are. But I really Sea of Thieves is great. It's a great game. It's been very consistent. We have a great following. But Everwild is something that people don't know about that I think that they should. So that's my quick 2 cents. Any other questions before we move on?
Hey, I used to love gaming, but can't really do it anymore, which is a shame. What I'm saying is that I used to play a lot when I was a child. I realized how addictive all this stuff is. I have a little cousin who is very talented and very smart, very good at soccer. He lives in America now. But he's addicted to video games, and a lot of his friends are. Sorry. There's a lot of stats recently kind of condemning how much time children are spending inside and the lack of outside time they have. Just wondering if Rare or Microsoft think that's an issue and if you're doing anything about it really, because I don't know, a lot of kids are obese and they're ill, and I generally think there is a link between video games and stuff. And obviously not saying you guys are doing it, but I think it's quite an important thing to think about.
I can have a go. I mean, I think also the pandemic was pretty bad for people's outside time generally, right? And when people couldn't go outside, the thing that what they could do, is they could play games together. They could play games with their parents, with their siblings. It was a new way of connecting with people, right? And I think, I played games a lot as a kid. It's great for hand-eye coordination. It's great for problem solving. It's great a social aspect to it now. It's not an isolating thing people just do by themselves. It's how people connect nowadays and do things together. So I think it's important to be aware. But I think Rare making different kind of games, right? Everwild's very different to lots of games out there. So we can provide games that are more wholesome in some ways, right? And it's not just about these big violent games. That's great if that's what you want to play, but there's so much more to gaming than just shooting someone, and yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. I think a big part of it is having a diverse portfolio of games that people can play, as well as getting that balance in your day-to-day life. I understand that people have to take their own personal ownership over it, but as a game industry, we can do more at analyzing how much time people are spending playing in games. I'd say that with the diverse portfolio, you can have things that are a bit more educational and make games a more useful tool rather than just a mindless way to spend your time.
I spent a lot of time playing games growing up. When I was 8, I would think nothing of doing 14 hours on Final Fantasy. And for me, it was just being lost in that world. It was like reading a book, pretty much. That you just the characters, you get really invested in them, and also it's like a bonding experience. Me and my brother, he would play the game, and then I would help him solve the puzzles. It's there's so many different games that you can do, and it's not just. I'm losing my words because I'm nervous. Yes, someone please take over from me.
No, that was a great question. So I think my thought process is overdoing anything always leads to bad behavior. So whether that is overplaying games, overeating, overworking out, strains muscles, So I always tell people I'm in this Women in Gaming's focus group, and that's one of the things that they were talking about is like, how do we protect their children from overconsumption of games, because that is a lot of people's escape. And it's really something that I don't have an answer to, because my main thought process is like, they're your kids, like put parameters around that, but sometimes they can't. So I know it's something that we're having conversations about. And I know that when it comes to our games and Rare games, we're doing something that caters to everyone across the board. So yes, and not just with Rare, but Xbox games as a whole, we create Minecraft, which is super educational. But we also have Halo, which is a shooting game. And I've had people tell me, like, your games are violent and you're entitled to those opinions. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for your house. And maybe your house is not having games. Maybe your house is only letting people play games on the weekends. I think that's something that you all have to work out, and something that we don't have the answer to based on people's family situation. So I hope that answers your question to some degree. Any other questions? Oh, snaps here. Be careful. Okay.
Hello. Yeah, good. I didn't come here early enough to hear all that you said, but there are a couple of questions. One is to do with how do you collaborate with other game houses to develop your games? We're in a black tech. Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry. How do you collaborate with other game houses to develop your games? We're doing black tech. I report from Esports African News. So basically, we report everything from the continent out in Europe, because sitting in Europe, I can't see much of content from Africa. So myself and my colleagues are doing that, bringing in the content from Africa. But I just want to know, there are loads of studios we sort of highlight, spotlight, but is Microsoft working with them or collaborating with other studios to be able to promote their games? Then the other thing about Microsoft, I don't know if this is the right team to ask the question to, is we're not able to register our IPs from Africa because you see that Europe, Japan, or America. So all the statistics about African gamers doesn't get across. Newzoo's report, YouGov's report, all the reports don't actually reflect the number of gamers, the number of people playing games or tournaments in Africa. Unfortunately, we are always sidelined, never having the fair chance of sort of participating in these world tournaments. So I just want to know if there's a platform, or you can take it across to your leaders to address.
I mean, generally, I think you're asking about sort of, wider Microsoft stuff. Like, we're Rare. We don't. Like, I don't know what wider Microsoft are doing with, like on the world scale in terms of games and highlighting different games from different sort of different countries and etc. I don't know what's going on there, because that's not our thing.
I will say that we do offer Game Pass as a platform which just promotes games from all over the world. And in terms of the access to entry in countries like Africa and stuff, we are introducing xCloud, which is cloud gaming. So a lot of people will have the opportunity to game off of their mobile and have that option where they can't afford a console. I spent the summer in Congo, which is where my family's from, and they had no clue what an Xbox was. So explaining to them the details around that is very difficult. And having a tool like xCloud is very easy, because I can just show them on my phone how the game works and stream it that way.
We also just created a new organization, and it's called G4E. So it's called Gaming for Everyone. It started within Microsoft last year, and this is one of the problems that we're spoken about, not just in Africa, but in other developing centers. And it's how do we make sure that gaming is accessible to everyone outside? And it's something that we're working on, something that we do know, but also something I want to talk to you more about later, so come find me. But I do think those are interesting points. I don't know where we are, and I don't want to say that I do, because we're on camera and I don't have time. But I definitely want to talk more about it, but I want you to also know that we are working to make sure that there is a platform and that gaming is accessible to everyone, and not just based on where you live, but based on things that we cannot see, like disabilities that we spoke about earlier, things of that nature. So thank you for bringing that up. Did you have something to say? Okay. Someone else had a question. I saw.
As a recent graduate, I just wanted to know what is the best way into getting into the narrative design aspect of gaming, because I think that's what I'm more interested in, but like the lack of experience in that specific role, I just don't see a way to break into it.
I would say as like a push is always be proactive, try and go out and write sort of those stories to imaginary games or sort of ideas and concept and group that all up in a way of which is easily presentable to people. So a common way is as a portfolio website. So having each idea and have a little brief description of like what this idea and story could be about. And then from then it can lead into greater ways to pass it on to people. So say if there's an internship, you could easily explain all those ideas at once of where you were going with this idea and how you wanted it to grow up and how you wanted to interact with the player and stuff like that.
I know when they ask for experience, you think, oh, I have to have like 3 years working at this company. Experience can be different things, especially in the game development world. So if you want to get into like narrative design, I would suggest joining game jams. Many different organizations run game jams, and you can join a group and be their narrative designer and help them make the game. And then that's like your portfolio piece, and that's experience because you'll have shipped a game. You can put it on itch.io or Steam, and it doesn't have to be working at a company. And then that's how you can get your experience.
I think also to jump in, like, take a game that you love, learn about the lore of that game if you don't already, and write something that's inspired by that would fit into that world, right? Because then you're showing the company that you're applying to, like, hey, I know your lore, and I can write things that fit into your world that you've created. It would be good.
And also join game jams in your community or through the university. I've had people that have graduated and they want to get into gaming, and you can connect with the university in your area that might have an alumni gaming association or something where they do hackathons or game jams once a year. And just even having that experience and be able to tell that story will set you apart from other candidates. Perfect. Any other questions before we move on to some?
Hi, so my question's kind of about intersectionality. So obviously, in the gaming and tech industry, women are going to be the minority, even though there's quite a few women here today, just generally, they're the minority. So I was wondering if any of you guys have faced adversity in terms of gender. Obviously, we're here discussing race today, but I know that women in tech are less prominent, so.
I mean, I can take the question. So when I started at Rare on the engine team, I was the only woman in the whole team. I think even in that whole building, to be honest. And that was not always seeing people, other women who are doing that job was a bit difficult. And but I think as I've been at Rare for a few years, we've hired a whole bunch more women engineers. Like we're actively trying to make sure we're having a diverse staff. But you're right in that it's difficult when you don't always see yourself in like a more senior role, for example. But I think being part of an Xbox game studio, we can connect with other women in Xbox. We have a women in Xbox group, and we recently had like a Women of Xbox Day at Rare where we all got to chat, and I think that's a really nice way of finding your community, finding people like you, even if there maybe isn't someone in your team, for example.
And it's also something that it's spoken about. I think that in society, like gaming has been identified as a male industry, but honestly, like 49% of the people that play games are women. So if that is what is happening, then why aren't 49% of the people that work there women as well? And it's a conversation that we're having, but I think it also starts from people not even knowing what there is to do in the gaming industry. If you love design, I had someone come talk to me and was like, I really love design. I had no idea I can major in UX, UI, and be in the gaming industry. And we had a conversation, and this person, I think I see them, but it's okay. I won't call them out. But this person is like, I'm going to work on a portfolio, and I'm going to give it to you. So I think it's about having that conversation. And I love that Microsoft and Rare gives us that platform. In the US, it's a lot more common. I've learned that in Europe, it's not, but that doesn't stop our communication from happening. So like you said, it is a problem. It is something that we have and open communication to, and it's something that we're working on. And it's not just women, it's also people of color as well that, you know, aren't in the gaming industry like it should be and like they should be. So all that to say, I still feel safe. Like, I don't feel like my voice isn't heard. I still have a seat at the table. Even being in HR where I'm not making those games, I'm still heard. And I think that that's super important in any environment or any industry that you work in. Shad.
I'll just add to that that there is also always the opportunity to reach out to people. I feel like speaking to a lot of people today, they weren't even aware that video games is an option as a career, really. And early on in my career, I was definitely in that boat. So feel free to, you know, talk to people on LinkedIn, and you'll be surprised on how much people actually respond back to you. And definitely just get stuck in. Coming to events like this is already a bonus. So yeah, just keep doing that kind of thing.
Perfect. Any other questions?
I came a bit late, so you guys all said you worked on Sea of Thieves. Could I just know what each of you guys did in that aspect? What was your roles for that project?
So I'm an audio designer. So I work on the sound effects for the game. So all the explosions and all the quirky little sounds, from cooking to editing VO and, you know, fireplaces or sailing the pirate ship. That's my role, essentially.
I am more of a tools background, so not directly touching the game, but I'm helping the development process. So an example is platforms such as Steam and Xbox like the game to be sent to them in a certain way. So I will create an automated tool which will, in like a click of a button, it will build it and then upload it to these stores for players to download the latest update.
I mainly break the game, but then I fix it, so it's okay. But in Engine, I actually quite like crash dumps. So we get a lot of crashes in retail. They come through to us in Engine, and then I'll have a look at them and try and fix the crash, so it doesn't crash for people in game, because that's really important. But that's what I like to do, as well as just help with general performance of the game.
Yeah, so similar, I'm a software engineer. A lot of my time is spent supporting the game feature teams as they're, you know, working on the new features and things. I worked on the original set of Tall Tales for our anniversary release, and I also work with the animation content team. So we have some tech that we use to have our cutscenes for our Tall Tales, our adventures. So I support the team in using that tech and fixing any issues with it, so we can just have nice animations, cutscenes for people to get all the story.
Beautiful. And we're going to run it back real quick because there's a lot of people who want to know that, you know, are post-college or in boot camps, like what tools or programs would help them be successful. So for software engineering, would it be C++? For audio, what would that look like? What should they get familiar with in order to set themselves up for success?
I mean, I can start. I mean, I did cover this in a previous question, but yeah, C++ is the main language we use for engineering, doing like gameplay engineering and engine engineering. Unreal Engine and Unity are the big game engines that are used by a bunch of companies. So get stuck into those. They have great tutorials. It's very very accessible, right? You know, with the tutorials that they've made, courses. You know, you can make a little game. You have like sample assets that come with those tutorials. So you know, you really get just stuck into all parts.
Yeah, I like to read a lot of books, do a lot of tutorials online. There's this place called Humble Bundle, which they told me about in uni, and you just get like bundles for software engineering books or like Unreal tutorials, and I do those a lot. And yeah, C++, they told me that in college. They're like, go learn C++, and I was like, I have no idea what that is, but okay. So I was like, it was made by Bjarni Stroustrup. He has a book, great, it's for beginners, awesome. And so I just did that book and all the like little exercises that he puts in it, and then applied for the internship and got the job. That helped me doing that book.
What was that book called again? I'm sorry.
It's programming principles and practice using C++. It's by the creator of the language.
I'm more of a C#, so as I'm making tools, it's sort of a quicker and easier to sort of whip up and prototype sort of language. The tool I would really recommend learning is your IDE, your place of coding. So the debugger especially, because you can pause the tool mid-process and read those variables and understand why is it happening like this and understand how to fix it.
I'd also like to say that you should definitely learn a game engine if you can. Unreal Engine and Unity is definitely a big hand. From an audio perspective, it's a little bit more tricky because you do have this sort of notion that it's like a barrier to entry. But there are some really good tools like digital audio workstations such as Reaper, which at the moment is like £50, which sounds like a lot, but compared to a lot of the other industry tools, it's a lot more accessible.
Beautiful. We have about 6 more minutes, so I wanted to make sure there weren't any more questions before we wrap it up. So does anyone out there have any more questions, thoughts, ideas, anything that they just want to talk about? And if you don't feel comfortable asking now, feel free to come to our booth. We'll all be there. But does anyone have any questions? Perfect. So the last final questions to y'all is more personal questions and professional. But what is something, as people are embarking in their new, in like career changes or in just their career, what is something that you wish you knew earlier that could have helped you throughout your career?
Can someone else start so then I can have a think? Thank you.
For me, it'd definitely be getting a lot more hands-on experience. I know that like everyone's university experience is a little different, but for me, I didn't like the theory side of things as much. I found that getting practical experience is way more valuable to me and my career growth. I sort of learn better when I'm in person with someone rather than over the web or just like theoretically learning ideas rather than putting them into practice.
I would say for me, it would be more of don't try to be the next bestseller by yourself. So if you're proactively creating stuff, creating games, creating tools, you might not be able to think of this amazing new idea. But if you do lots of small, lots of short ideas, like game jams, they're a week long, they're a month long. These short little ideas, if you keep doing those, you gain a wide range of experience, and then that experience can help you find what you enjoy and what you love to do in your spare time or as professionally as a job.
For me, it would be, it's okay to fail. So fail as fast as you can, because the faster you fail, then the faster you learn. When I started, I was like, everything has to be perfect. The code I write, it has to be perfect. It's going to ship, it has to be perfect. And that was actually holding me back. So I wish earlier I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. Just do it, get it working, and then you can perfect it later. Just get something that works.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's just try, don't be afraid to try things, right? Say yes to opportunities, to every opportunity you get. Come to events, go to talks, and then when you get your job, like you see a gap, maybe someone's leaving, they're leaving a role that has some specialist knowledge, be like, I can learn that, and then go and get stuck in it and learn it, and you never know where those opportunities might take you.
Perfect. And another question that I was asked a lot, and this is for everyone on the panel, is I love that someone brought up the question about gaming culture and crunch time, but I want to have a real raw conversation about what is your favorite thing about working for and with Rare? I'm curious to know.
Yeah, I can go. For me, I think it's the opportunities at Rare, where we have a few hundred people in our studio, which sounds like a lot, but when you think about some of the bigger companies like Ubisoft, there's thousands of people. A few hundred is not actually that much. So it means that the opportunities that I have at work are kind of unique. You know, I'd been at the company for about a year, and then I started managing somebody, which is pretty quick, and I'm very thankful that the company sort of trusted me to do that. But I don't think I would have had that opportunity at a larger company. Same for events, like we come here, and I think it's good life experience for me.
I think for me, my last jobs, they were physically challenging. Like it was a lot of hours and customers, but it didn't really challenge me mentally. Whereas at Rare now, being a programmer, I'm just like, I'm always growing. There's always something new to learn, and I can keep growing as well. Like Microsoft want you to grow as a person, and I love that I can do that and get paid for it. It's amazing.
Sorry to be an echo, but mine would be also the learning aspect, how open and how accessible it is to learn. So I could see something all new and shiny, and like I want to know how this works. I want to know more details about it, and I could just catch up to that person, send them a message, say, "Hey, I got some questions to ask," and I'm happy to sit down and have a chat. So even if it's not, say, on my CV or skills, I can still feel free to ask them and learn about that and grow that skill set, and hopefully grow a bigger knowledge of expertise I know.
Yeah, I'd also echo that. It's sort of the opportunity to learn, and particularly in the way that you can ask questions to colleagues. And the flip side of that is if you know something, you can share it with someone as well, and having that open mindset and not being afraid to ask stupid questions, no matter how big or small.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we're at time. I want to give a big thank you to y'all for coming out and being on the panel and answering some tough questions and being raw and open. And thank y'all for asking really great questions. And definitely come speak to us in booth D9 if you have any other things that you want to know a little bit more about. We're super excited to be here. Have a great day. Bye.